Welcome back to the Chicago Tomahawk. I'm Mike. I got my line mate Matt with me, and today we got Jason Rush Jr. with us. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well. Really appreciate you guys having me on today. Really appreciate it. How are you guys?
We're good, man. We're good. We're really looking forward to this interview, having you on here. I'm a fan, but I'd like you to let all of our listeners know exactly who you are and what you're aspiring to be.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate that. So again, I'm Jason, and I am new to the city of Chicago, but I've been listening to WGN radio and watching Hawks games for a number of years. I've always admired the broadcasting in this city. I grew up in Michigan, and it was there where my love for broadcasting developed. And over the past couple of months, it's led to an opportunity to fill in for a couple of Blackhawks games that I did week before last against Colorado on radio and then against Las Vegas on TV. And those were two of the most unforgettable nights of my life. I loved every minute of it. It was an honor to fill in for John Weideman on radio and an honor to fill in for Pat Foley on TV, two broadcasters who have become institutions here in Chicago, as you guys know, and two very kind human beings and just two excellent broadcasters, people who are really good at their craft. And it's been an honor to have an opportunity to fill in for those guys, and thank you to everyone at the Blackhawks for that. I mean, I can't thank enough people. It truly has felt like a family over at the United Center that I've become a part of, and again, I've loved every minute of it. So that's kind of my new role here in Chicago. I also do play-by-play for Big Ten Network and ESPN and Fox on TV, doing different sports, college hockey being one of those for Big Ten Network, and now stepping into the NHL for the first time with the Blackhawks. So it's been a whirlwind moving here from Michigan over the past couple of months, but I, again, have loved every minute of it and would not want it any other way.
You know, listening to you, it's almost some guys talk really fast, and then listening to you, it's almost as if you bring the game speed down a bit and make it a little bit more coherent for a lot of people. How exactly is that something that you intentionally try to do, or is it more of like you bringing the game down to your speed? Because hockey is such a fast sport.
Yeah, it's really interesting you bring that up. That's something that I've tried to work on in recent years, because as you mentioned, it is such an inherently fast sport. So especially I think on radio and on TV, that can get to a point where if you're talking too fast, people might not be able to digest what you're saying. So it is in my mind while I'm calling the game that I think my philosophy there is add energy, not necessarily speed to my speaking tone. I want to add energy to it more so than talking faster. I think that's a good way to think of it, because you can build up a play with energy and rise that up as the play develops without necessarily speeding up the way that you're speaking. So that's, I think out of all the sports you could call, that might be most important with hockey, because it can get to a point where it's not digestible if you are talking too fast. So I really love that you brought that up there, because that's a key part of hockey play-by-play and something I've tried to hone in on. So that was definitely a part of my mindset when I was doing the Blackhawks games week before last, was to add energy, not necessarily speed, because the game is already fast. So our energy should co-align with that fast-paced game.
How did when was it where you were like, you know what, this is the path that I want to go down, this is what I want to do? You know, when did you first probably get onto the path that you're on now?
I have to go back. I'd probably say I've always throughout my life loved listening to games, watching games on TV, and it was around, I'd say, the middle school age, 12, 13, 14, that I started to realize I would watch highlights all day of games, and I started to realize there was a voice, there was someone behind that voice that was calling those highlights, that was telling the story of the game, that was narrating the pictures that I was watching, and I realized I could do that. And so I would buy books on broadcasting. I'm looking at my bookshelf now, and it's filled with several books related to sportscasting, and I would just consume those all day, and watch games. Then I'd start listening to games on the radio on a more detailed level. I would go to high school games with a recorder, and I would do play-by-play, usually radio style, and just get reps, high school hockey, basketball, whatever it may be in Michigan. That led to my first job with a cable network, and then that led to doing college sports for the university that I went to. And then ultimately, when I was there, I would find whatever opportunities I could, and that included writing for Sports Illustrated, doing video work for Sports Illustrated. I would call the college sports where I was going to university at Lawrence Tech University, and I would do a litany of different sports: hockey, basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever I could get my hands on, and just work on my craft all day long. I worked in minor league baseball in the United Shore Professional Baseball League, doing play-by-play there. I did a show with a friend of mine who also works for the Blackhawks by the name of Jenna Rose, and she's our in-arena host, does some ringside for NBC Sports Chicago as well in the Blackhawks, doing an awesome job. And she and I did a show called the Motor City Roundup, and we would film that show, we would edit that show, we'd write it, we'd post our own social media. We created our own social media channels for it, and we put out episodes each week and put out content going to Red Wings games, Pistons games, Tigers games, whatever we could get our hands on, college sports. We were there and we were filming, and then I would do practice play-by-play up in the gondola of Little Caesars Arena when the Red Wings would play. I also worked for a site called DetroitSportsMedia.com, and I would do reports for them prior to Red Wings games. After that finished up, I'd go up top in the gondola and I'd call practically every Red Wings game, and no one would hear it except for my good friend who I just mentioned there, Jenna. And that was the only person who was listening, but I would get reps doing that and practice over and over again, along with college hockey and high school hockey. And that ultimately led to some opportunities. I did ESPN3 and ESPN Plus work for Oakland University in Michigan, worked for them as well. And it was after my last summer in minor league baseball that I received an opportunity with ESPN to do some football for them. And then I received an opportunity from Big Ten Network. Then the Blackhawks moved here, did some work with Fox as well. And now it's really turning into something where I'm looking back on the journey, and it's been amazing. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, of kind of looking back at work and honing in on little details, studying endless hours of people like John Weideman and Pat Foley, and just diving into their work. So a lot of time and work going back to that 12, 13, 14-year-old, and before that, who was just listening to games and kind of consuming them and thinking maybe I could do that one day. And now it's starting to pan out with people who I really, really love working with here in Chicago, the Blackhawks and Big Ten Network. Everyone's been so kind. Again, I can't thank enough people, but it's truly, truly been a whirlwind over the past couple of months. And every now and then I'll try to sit back and kind of look back and take a little pause and realize how much time has gone into it. So it's been fantastic. And doing the game in Las Vegas was the coolest night of my life. That was incredible, and I'll never forget that night.
You nailed it. You nailed it, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's really cool to look back on that game. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
I'll be honest with you. When I turned the game on, and because me and my wife, she usually works, and I watch the games, and I was folding some laundry, and then I was listening to it, and I'm like, who is that? And
it's Sam Elliott.
It's funny because I was like, you have such a very distinctive voice. And I think that's really important. When I hear a Blackhawks game, I know exactly who Pat Foley is. Mm-hmm. I know exactly who Edzo is, and I was just like, man. And then they didn't show anything for a while, and I looked it up and I found out that it was you. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. And because usually they have Colby Cohen on there, or but anyways, I kind of digress. It's really incredible how much work it goes into broadcasting, because when you hear like really good broadcasters, it's like they're just on it, and they're not on it, here and there. They're on it all the time. Like there's like a I don't want to call it a skill set. It's more like kind of becomes like second nature in a way to watching a game, and then putting it in, like you mentioned, to people that makes it digestible. Is there maybe like a skill that, say there's an up and coming broadcaster, something that you would say that they need to work on first so that they can kind of start their skill set to broadcasting?
I would say, let's see, with hockey, there are kind of multiple things to unpack there. But if we're going to go to what to maybe work on first, it would be with hockey. Number one priority for me is, this sounds pretty basic, but knowing the names and numbers. If you hear number 44 right away, I need to know that's Calvin DeHaan. If you hear 22, I need to know that's Carpenter. 23, Kurashev. I need to know that right off the bat. 77, Doc. Like, that's, for me, knowing both teams like the back of your hand is incredibly important, because we talked about how fast the game of hockey is. You just cannot look down in this sport because it moves so fast. You might have a moment every now and then where you can have a little glance, and I have my charts in front of me. I like to have biographical notes and the latest statistical notes on each and every player, along with team notes, but really being at a point going into a broadcast where you understand your preparation and you have a command of your preparation. That for me is, I think, the most important thing. So number one, first and foremost, for broadcasters to get down, for younger broadcasters, would be the preparation, because that's, I think, where it kind of starts and stops. It can get to a point where I've learned this season not to almost overdo it, because that can also get into your mind. So knowing what you need to know going into a game is incredibly important, and that starts at the basic level with names and numbers, and then understanding the storylines, speaking with your analysts. You mentioned Colby there. I worked with Colby on the game. He is great, really fantastic analyst. I talked to him earlier today, actually, and kind of having a relationship with your analyst, that's important. Knowing the storylines, I think, is obviously key as well. You speak to coaches ahead of time, but that's where it starts. And then if you want to get into a deeper level on hockey play-by-play, because I keep going back to how fast the game is, I think that's, for me, the most fun challenge of it, because it's almost, with hockey, this element of anticipating what's going to happen before it happens next. And that's something I've really worked on, seeing the game in that fashion, and that's how you can really sit on a moment and then be right on it when it happens. So I think that's a lot of fun for me with hockey. I think that's why hockey is my favorite sport to call, because of the adrenaline of it, the energy of it, that challenge, and trying to meet that challenge. I think similar to a team sport with TV play-by-play, you're part of a group and you're a very small part of that. You have your producer, you have your director, you have your graphics people, and they're all making the show happen, your stage manager. All these people are very, very important to what we're doing, and you practice leading up to the game with your prep. And it's almost like, if you're an athlete, afterwards, after the game happens, you hope that all your work, all your practice, you hope it pays off. And it's really fun when you can give yourself a good grade after a game.
Go on ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Jason, did you have a favorite broadcaster as a kid, or even now? I know Pat Foley's been me and Mike's pretty much only voice with the Hawks. But I also enjoyed Gary Thorne. Did you have anybody kind of like that growing up?
Ooh, I really love Gary Thorne. He's one of my favorites to look back on. And I mentioned studying different broadcasters. He's one of my favorites. Just his energy and his goal calls in those big moments, calling cup finals as he did for a number of years. And then I really love listening to John Weideman as well on radio, Pat Foley. There's so many. John Forsland is one of my favorites to listen to. In Detroit, we have a couple of really good play-by-play broadcasters, and Ken Kal and Ken Daniels. Both of those guys have become mentors for me. So learning from their styles is something I picked from. And now I think I'm stepping into a place where I'm creating my own style. And it's kind of a compilation of listening to all these people. And then you pick what suits you. And I think one of my favorite things about this business is I love this conversation here, because you can turn on a game and start learning, and you can turn on different broadcasters and pick out different things that you like. And I'm constantly watching games with a notepad, writing down new things that I want to maybe implement, or, I liked that word he used here, I loved this word here, and I liked this goal call. So yeah, it's a lot of different broadcasters that I could pick and choose from. Jim Houston, who recently retired, as someone who, in Detroit, we get Hockey Night in Canada because we're so close to the border of Ontario, and I listen to Hockey Night in Canada. So Jim Houston and Chris Cuthbert, who's calling the Cup final now in Hockey Night in Canada, he does a great job every Saturday night. So I've listened to him. I've had the pleasure of meeting those people and learning a lot from them. I love Mark Mosier's energy with the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, yeah, he's a good
yeah,
one.
He's
Yeah.
really fun to listen to. He's fantastic. So many guys who I could go back in time and point out as well. I really love going back and listening to games of, this is going back a bit, but Danny Gallivan, who was a Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster way back in the day, calling Montreal Canadiens games, and just a lot of different broadcasters around the NHL. I like to turn on now ESPN Plus and soak in different games and different broadcasts, or hop on the NHL app and you can listen to any radio broadcast you want to now. So that's a lot of fun for me, looking at different broadcasters and kind of dissecting what I like and writing down notes. And there's so many good broadcasters. Everyone's excellent at their craft in the NHL level, and it's really, really fun to study and become a student of broadcasting. I think that's what I consider myself to be, as a student of the craft. So yeah, and we have some excellent ones here in Chicago, obviously, with our different sports. Adam Amin on the Bulls, and Jason Benetti, Len Casper, Boog Shambi. That's been one of my favorite parts about moving here to Chicago. My DVR is at 99% full because I just keep recording these different games and listening back to them. I'm like, I need to study this and then this, and the Bulls are playing tonight, but the Hawks are playing. I got to record both. So yeah, it's definitely a process of listening to a lot of broadcasters and discovering the ones that I really love listening to, and all of them are fantastic. So yeah, that's one of my favorite parts.
Did you hear? Sorry to cut you off. Did you hear the goal call by the Avalanche play-by-play? Sorry, I'm blanking on his name, but with Taves, that epic goal he scored. I believe it was in 2009. I'm not sure where he skated through three guys, and after the goal, he said, "This is the kind of talent that can bring back a franchise." I thought that was a great goal call.
I think I have heard that. That's a fantastic call, and it kind of provides. I love it because it provides context to the moment as well.
Yes.
With bringing in that little note of the future of the franchise, like I love that. That's fantastic.
So Jason, where are you, like, kind of at now? Where do you see yourself within, like, the next, couple of years?
I would love to continue working in the NHL. The people in this league are so fantastic, just excellent human beings all around. I've had a pleasure. I mentioned in college, started getting my foot in the door pretty early with going to games, and this wasn't for any pay or anything. I would just go and report on games and get my reps in, and then go up in the gondola, meet whoever I could meet, and call the game for practice, and met a lot of people by way of doing that, and really helped me to fall in love with the NHL. And I have loved every minute of working in this league. I haven't been in it for many years, but I've loved every second of it. And so I really do love the game of hockey. It's, again, so fun to call. The people are amazing. The organizations are so fantastic. I love different sports too. I love doing basketball. I love doing football with the different networks I'm working with, and getting some experience on other sports as well. Lacrosse, I'll be doing for the Big Ten Network. Softball, baseball, I worked in minor league baseball. So I try to be as versatile as I can. I think that's another point for younger broadcasters, is to try to be as versatile as possible, because you never know what opportunity might lead to the next one. You never know what sport might lead to the next sport. So I think the flexibility of being able to do different sports is something to go back onto that note of younger broadcasters in the business. It's always great to be able to do maybe a lacrosse or soccer, volleyball, because you never know what sport might lead to the next, and being able to do those Olympic sports can then lead to other sports. And just having versatility in general is so important in the business, I think, as a play-by-play broadcaster. And doing those sports are really fun for me. I love calling volleyball and lacrosse and soccer, football, basketball, softball, baseball, whatever it may be. So I think that it's a fun challenge to be able to step outside of, maybe if you do enjoy doing hockey the most or basketball the most, whatever it may be, then to step outside and do a different sport. I think that's a very key part of play-by-play in general, and it really is a fun challenge for me. I think it's another one of those fun challenges in the business. So again, I would recommend for any younger broadcaster to be able to do any sport that you can, and try to develop a resume that includes multiple sports, maybe multiple leagues, whatever it may be. It just really helps to round out your experience. So yeah, definitely something that has been enjoyable for me to do that. But I, again, love hockey. I think it's, at the end of the day, my favorite to call.
It's funny. They usually say, for your resume, try to keep it one page, which I think is absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
And but for you, it seems like it's going to need to be more of like a pamphlet of of what you've done and actually what you can do. It's really interesting. It seems that I know Pat Foley, for instance, he was a big fan of the Blackhawks, and so he kind of like just stepped into hockey, and like hockey is his thing. It seems like you love the art of broadcasting, and that is like your gig is broadcasting. It doesn't matter what it is, that you could do it for anything under the sun. Maybe we should have you over for like a beer pong tournament and have you broadcast that or something.
Yes. Oh man, that could be a new one to add to the resume.
You've done everything else.
So, just to kind of wrap things up, how long have you been in Chicago, and what do you love most about the city?
Yeah, I've been in Chicago again for just a couple of months now, and it's been fantastic. Again, I've loved adjusting to the city life. I think before we jumped on here, we were talking about the little details. When can you find free parking, and where can you find free parking? That's some of the enjoyable and not so enjoyable parts of it, but it all comes together and creates the wonderful city vibe, and I love it here in Chicago. Again, everyone has been like family. I grew up in Detroit watching the Red Wings, but the Blackhawks have really become my team, and I love watching the group. I love the people over there, and it has really been fantastic working for my new employers here in Chicago, and really have created a fun family atmosphere. And I think that's really made me happy over these last couple of months, and just happy as a person, happy as a broadcaster. And those are two things that when they come together, it really creates a wonderful day, a wonderful life. And I would love to be here for a while. I mean, I love this city. It's fantastic. So it's been really nice getting to know people like yourselves, getting to know the fans, the people who cover the team, again, like you guys. And this fan base is incredible. It's amazing. When I did the game in Las Vegas, my flight was packed with Hawks fans coming back. I think there are very few fan bases, not just in the NHL, but among the four major sports, where you could say something like that about a pro team, and you can say that about the Blackhawks. And that's something I find incredible every single day I'm here. And I love this fan base. It really is fun to be a part of. I feel like I'm a fan of this team, and I've joined the fan base, and I love it. So I think that's really helped out with my experience here in Chicago, stepping into a place that I genuinely love and want to be.
Well, Jason, I want to tell you it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our podcast. Well, we'd love to have you on again sometime, whether we're talking about the Blackhawks or, just talking sports in general. I will tell you this, since you're new to Chicago, if you're looking for a place to go have pizza, go check out Pequod's. It'll knock your doors off, trust me.
Wow, it's funny you bring that up, because that has been recommended to me. You're the third person to recommend that now, because I have been asking people for their top 5 pizza lists. So maybe I'll end this by asking you guys a question here. Maybe top 3 pizza places from both of you, and I'll have my notebook and pen out here while you say that.
I would definitely say you've got to do Pequod's or Gino's East.
Ooh.
I would say a minimum, if there's 2 places that you're going to try, you got to do either or. But I would recommend. Man, it's kind of hard for me to say, because I've been a Gino's East guy for a really long time. But Pequod's just does it. They just do an excellent job. But check either of those 2 out if you can.
Awesome. Those are both on my list. Pequod's, Gino East.
You can't go wrong with Giordano's deep dish either.
Okay, I've had Giordano's once. Yeah. Very good. I've also had Lou Malnati's. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'm not really much of a Giordano's guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're okay. It's actually not really deep dish. It's more stuffed crust, which is a little different. But Pequod's and Gino's is deep dish.
Aurelio's in Homewood. That's the original. That's very good. If you want to take a drive south a little bit, but it's worth it. It's good.
Name that for me one more time.
Aurelios.
Aurelios.
Yes.
Okay.
In Homewood, Illinois.
Homewood, Illinois. Okay,
Yep.
that sounds fantastic. And the difference between stuffed and deep dish, if I could get a quick lecture on that.
You know, it seems like the crust is a little. I don't want to say the crust, but it's like I don't know, man.
Well, it's picky.
It's not that I'm picky. It's that it's. I mean, there is a difference between the two. I will tell you that I like the deep. Like if you put them next to each other and you're like, this is deep dish, this is stuffed crust, I'd be like, I like the deep dish better. But they're very similar because I mean they both have the, you know, the sauce on top of the cheese.
I love it. Okay, so now I've learned some things during this podcast. It's been a pleasure chatting with you guys. I have new notes written down. I love to get a couple of notes down every day. That's my goal each day. Learn something new. And if we don't learn anything else at the end of this day, I'm totally good with that. That was fantastic.
Well, and Jeremy Roenick is he's a part of the Aurelios family. I always see him on commercials talking about all the sauce and stuff. He's funny.
Awesome.
Well, all right, Jason, thank you for coming on. We look for having you on again. You take it easy, and we're looking forward to listening to you on your next telecast. This is the Tomahawk, and we're out of here.